March the 21st, 1987. Bally's Grand Hotel, Las Vegas. The spotlight burns hot and white. Dean Martin stands at center stage. 5,000 people watch him sing "Everybody Loves Somebody." His voice is smooth as aged bourbon. His timing is perfect. The audience sways with him like wheat in a gentle wind. The air is thick with cigarette smoke and expensive perfume. Then a stagehand appears in the wings. He waves frantically. His face is pale. Dean sees him. He stops mid-verse. The orchestra keeps playing for 3 more bars before they realize something is wrong. Dean's face goes white. He drops the microphone. Thud. The feedback screams through the speakers like a wounded animal. He walks off stage without a word, without a glance at the audience. The crowd laughs nervously. They think it's part of the show, but backstage, Dean Martin's world had just ended. His son was dead. Captain Dean Paul Martin, United States Air Force, 35 years old. His F-4 Phantom jet had slammed into San Gorgonio Mountain at 400 miles per hour. The impact was so violent there was nothing left. And the next 72 hours would reveal a side of Dean Martin that nobody knew existed. A father so utterly broken that he would never truly perform again. Not really, not from the heart, not ever. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand who Dean Paul was to his father. Dean Martin had 7 children from 3 marriages. He loved them all in his distant, complicated way. He provided for them. He showed up when he could. But Dean Paul was different. Dean Paul was something more. Dean Paul was his mirror. Born in 1951, the boy inherited everything that made Dean Martin a star. The dark Italian looks, the effortless charm that made women weak, the athletic grace that made everything look easy. By 16, Dean Paul was a nationally ranked tennis player, competing at Wimbledon. By 20, he was leading a rock band called Dino, Desi, and Billy with Desi Arnaz Jr. They had real hits, real fans, real talent. By 25, he was acting in Hollywood films. He moved through life exactly like his father. Nothing seemed to touch him. Nothing seemed hard. Nothing seemed to require effort. Dean watched his son with something close to wonder. Here was proof that the Martin magic was real. It wasn't just luck or timing. It was blood. It was bone. Dean rarely said, "I love you," to anyone. Words like that felt dangerous to a man who grew up poor in Steubenville, Ohio. But everyone who knew him understood the truth. Dean Paul was his heart walking around outside his body. But here's what nobody knew about their relationship. The bond worked because neither demanded too much. They played golf together at Riviera Country Club every Sunday morning. They shared long meals at La Familia restaurant on Cannon Drive. They talked about sports and women and fast cars. Never feelings, never fears, never the things that kept them awake at night. That wasn't the Martin way. They communicated through presence, through showing up, through the comfortable silence of 2 men who understood each other without needing words. Dean Paul had found something his father never possessed: purpose, real purpose. In 1980, at 29 years old, Dean Paul shocked everyone by joining the California Air National Guard. He wanted to fly fighter jets, not for the glamour or the uniform, for the discipline, for the structure, for the meaning. He trained relentlessly at bases across California. He earned his wings through pure determination. He became a weapons system officer in F-4 Phantom jets, the fastest, the most dangerous, the most demanding. Dean didn't understand it. Why would his son, who had money and fame and freedom, choose to strap himself into a metal coffin and fly at twice the speed of sound? But he never said a word against it. That wasn't his way. He just nodded. He showed up at March Air Reserve Base sometimes. He watched his son walk across the tarmac in that olive flight suit. And something shifted deep in his chest. Pride. Pure, uncomplicated, overwhelming pride. What Dean didn't know was that pride would be the thing that destroyed him. March 21st, 1987. The morning started cold and dark. Dean Paul woke at 0500 hours at March Air Reserve Base in Riverside County. The sun hadn't risen yet. The desert air was freezing. He dressed in his flight suit. The coffee in the ready room was bitter and hot. Black, no sugar. His weapons system officer, Captain Ramon Nafelts, was already there studying charts. They reviewed the flight plan together. A routine training mission, low-level navigation through the San Bernardino Mountains. They'd done it dozens of times before. The weather report showed clouds building over the peaks. Nothing unusual for March. Dean Paul checked his watch. 0730, time to fly. He walked across the tarmac toward his aircraft. His boots crunched on the frost. Click, click, click. The sound echoed across the empty flight line. The F-4 Phantom waited on the runway like a sleeping predator. 45 feet of American engineering, 2 General Electric J79 engines. Top speed, Mach 2.2, over 1,400 miles per hour. Dean Paul ran his hand along the fuselage. Cold metal bit at his fingers. He climbed the ladder and settled into the cockpit. The familiar smell of jet fuel filled his nostrils. Helmet on, visor down, ready. At 0745, the Phantom's engines roared to life. The jet launched into the California sky like a bullet from a gun. The base grew small beneath them. The desert stretched brown and gold toward the horizon. Dean Paul banked west toward the mountains. The sun was finally rising. Orange light spilled across the peaks like molten gold. This is where the story takes its darkest turn. The clouds were thicker than anyone predicted, much thicker. Visibility dropped to near zero within minutes. Gray soup everywhere. Dean Paul descended to stay below the ceiling. The mountains rose around them like walls. San Gorgonio Peak loomed somewhere ahead. 11,500 feet of granite and ice. The radar altimeter showed clear air ahead. It was wrong, fatally wrong. At 0803, the F-4 Phantom slammed into the western slope at 400 miles per hour. No distress call, no warning, no time to react. The jet disintegrated on impact. A fireball bloomed orange against the white snow. Wreckage scattered across a half-mile of frozen granite. Dean Paul Martin died instantly. So did Captain Nafelts. They never knew what happened. And 1,200 miles away in Las Vegas, Dean Martin was still sleeping in his hotel suite. He had no idea his world was about to collapse. The call came to Dean's manager first, Mort Viner. His phone rang at 10 a.m. Pacific. An Air Force colonel delivered the news in a flat voice. Then Mort called Jean, Dean's ex-wife and Dean Paul's mother. She collapsed. By the time Dean walked into his dressing room at 6 p.m., the news had traveled through every backstage corridor. Stagehands whispered, dancers wept, but nobody wanted to be the one to tell him. How do you tell Dean Martin that his favorite son is dead? Mort Viner finally did it. He'd known Dean for 30 years. He found him in the dressing room loosening his bow tie in front of the mirror. Dean was humming, relaxed, happy. He looked up and saw Mort's face. The red eyes, the trembling hands. Dean's fingers stopped moving. His whole body went rigid. "There's been an accident," Mort said. His voice cracked on every word. "Dean Paul's plane went down this morning, in the mountains. They can't find him." He couldn't finish. He didn't have to. Dean didn't scream. He didn't cry. He didn't throw anything or curse God. He just stood there, perfectly still, like a statue carved from grief. The bow tie hung loose around his neck like a noose. His eyes focused on something far away, something nobody else could see. "My boy," he whispered. That was all. My boy. The Dino character vanished in that moment, completely, permanently. The jokes, the lazy shrug, the glass of apple juice he pretended was whiskey, all of it dissolved like morning fog. In its place stood a 70-year-old man from Steubenville who had just lost everything that mattered in this world. And then something happened that shocked everyone who knew him. Dean insisted on performing that night. The show was scheduled for 9 p.m. 5,000 people had paid for tickets. His manager begged him to cancel. His friends pleaded. Everyone said the same thing. Nobody will blame you. People will understand. Dean refused. His jaw was set like concrete. The show goes on, he said. It always goes on. He walked out on that stage at 9:30 p.m. He sang for 90 minutes straight. Every song, every joke. His voice never wavered. His smile never cracked. His timing was impeccable. The audience laughed. They applauded. They had no idea they were watching a dead man perform, a ghost going through the motions, a heart that had already stopped beating. Backstage after the final bow, Dean collapsed. His legs simply gave out beneath him. 2 stagehands caught him before he hit the floor. They carried him to his dressing room. He sat in a chair and stared at the wall for 3 hours. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He didn't seem to breathe. What nobody knew was that the worst part was still coming. The Air Force couldn't find the crash site. San Gorgonio Mountain is brutally unforgiving terrain. Sheer granite cliffs covered in sheets of ice. Snow drifts 20 feet deep. Temperatures below zero at night. The search teams hiked for hours and found nothing. Dean Paul was up there somewhere, scattered across that frozen hell, but where exactly? Dean couldn't accept it. He refused to wait. He chartered a helicopter and flew to the mountain himself. The wind cut through his cashmere coat like frozen knives. He wasn't dressed for this. Loafers and a silk shirt, Vegas clothes, but he climbed out of the helicopter anyway. He stood on a ridge at 9,000 feet. Snow swirled around him. His breath came out in white clouds. He squinted into the endless white void. "Dean Paul," he shouted into the wind. His voice disappeared immediately. "Where are you, son? I'm here." The search team leader approached him carefully, a young Air Force captain with kind eyes. "Mr. Martin, we need to get you back to base. It's not safe for you up here." Dean turned to look at him. His eyes were empty, hollow. 2 dark holes where life used to live. "That's my son up there," Dean said. His voice cracked like thin ice. "He's alone. He's cold. He needs his father." They had to physically guide Dean back to the helicopter. Dean Martin, the king of cool, the man who never showed weakness, wept openly at 9,000 feet. The tears froze on his cheeks before they could fall. The wind howled around him like wolves. Here's the twist that made everything infinitely worse. It took 5 days to locate the crash site. 5 agonizing days. Dean barely slept. He barely ate. He sat by the telephone in his Beverly Hills mansion and waited for it to ring. The house had never felt so empty. The silence was suffocating. No music playing, no laughter echoing, just the tick of a grandfather clock and the unbearable weight of not knowing. When the Air Force finally located the wreckage, there was almost nothing left. The impact had been catastrophic. The fire had burned for hours. Dean Paul's remains fit in a small metal container. 35 years of life. All that talent, all that promise, reduced to ashes and bone fragments. The funeral was held on March 25th at Los Angeles National Cemetery. Dean insisted on a full military service with honors. His son had earned it. 200 mourners gathered in the cold, gray morning. Frank Sinatra stood in the front row, his face carved from stone. Sammy Davis Jr. was there too, weeping behind dark glasses. The Rat Pack reunited one final time, for grief. Dean wore a black suit that hung loose on his frame. He had lost 15 pounds in 4 days. His face was the color of old newspaper. He stood at the graveside and watched them lower his son into the cold California earth. An honor guard raised their rifles. 21 guns fired in perfect unison. Crack, crack, crack. Each shot made Dean flinch, like he was being hit. A reporter approached him afterward, microphone extended. "Mr. Martin, do you have any words about your son?" Dean looked at him with eyes that held nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. "He was my boy," Dean said quietly. "That's all there is to say. He was my boy." He turned and walked away. He never spoke about Dean Paul to the press again. What happened next would define the rest of Dean Martin's life. He tried to return to normal. He tried desperately. In 1988, he launched a reunion tour with Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr., the Together Again tour. It was supposed to be triumphant, 3 legends back on stage. But Dean couldn't do it. He forgot lyrics he'd sung 10,000 times. He missed cues. His timing was gone. Worst of all, that famous spark in his eyes had gone completely dark. 5 shows into the tour, Dean quit. He walked off stage in Chicago and never looked back. Frank was furious. He didn't understand how Dean could abandon them. "The show must go on," Frank shouted. Dean just looked at him with those empty eyes. "Not for me," he said. "Not anymore." Their friendship never recovered from that moment. Dean retreated to his Beverly Hills mansion. He stopped answering the phone. He stopped returning calls. He stopped seeing friends who had known him for decades. He sat alone in his den every single night, watching old Western movies on television. The curtains stayed permanently closed. The lights stayed dim. He ate frozen TV dinners on a tray. He chain-smoked until the room was thick with haze. He waited to die. His daughter Dina visited whenever he would allow her through the door. "Daddy wasn't Daddy anymore," she said later. "He was somewhere else, somewhere none of us could reach him, no matter how hard we tried." But what the world didn't know was worse than what they saw. Every night, alone in that dark den, Dean talked to Dean Paul out loud to an empty room. He apologized for not being a better father, for not saying "I love you" more often, for all the birthdays he missed because he was on tour, for all the years he chose work over family. "I should have told you every single day," Dean whispered into the darkness. "Every morning, every night. I should have told you how proud you made me." There would be no redemption for Dean Martin, no recovery, no third act comeback, no Hollywood ending. The years crawled past like wounded animals. Dean's health deteriorated steadily. His lungs were destroyed from decades of cigarettes. His heart grew weak. His kidneys began to fail. By 1995, he was a shell, 78 years old, ready for the end to finally come. On Christmas morning, 1995, Dean Martin died alone in his Beverly Hills home. The television was still on, playing a Western. "Acute respiratory failure," the death certificate read. But everyone who truly knew him understood the real cause. Dean Martin died of a broken heart. He died of grief so deep it had no bottom. He died because living without his son was a punishment he simply could not endure for one more day. Frank Sinatra heard the news on Christmas afternoon. He locked himself in his bedroom and didn't emerge for 2 full days. When he finally came out, his eyes were swollen and red. "Dean was the best friend I ever had," Frank said, "and he was never the same after his boy died. Never. Not for one single day." The funeral was held at Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park on a gray December afternoon. Thousands of fans gathered outside the gates holding candles and photographs. Inside, only close friends and family. Frank was there, looking older than his 80 years. Shirley MacLaine wept openly throughout the service. The ceremony was brief and simple. Dean would have wanted it that way. They buried him near the entrance under a simple stone marker that reads simply, "Everybody loves somebody sometime." Dean Paul is buried just yards away. Father and son, together again at last. The way it should have been from the very beginning. The way Dean had prayed for every night in that dark den. There is a lesson buried in this story, one that Dean Martin would never have spoken out loud. The cool persona was armor. The jokes were shields. The effortless charm was a wall built by a frightened boy from Steubenville who learned that showing emotion got you hurt. Dean spent his whole life hiding, from feeling, from connection, from the terrifying vulnerability that comes with truly loving another person. And then he lost Dean Paul, and all that armor meant nothing. All those walls crumbled. The man who never cried couldn't stop crying. The man who never needed anyone discovered he needed his son more than air. The man who seemed to have everything learned that everything meant absolutely nothing without the people you loved. Some wounds never heal. Some losses never fade with time. Some holes in the heart can never be filled by anything or anyone. Dean Martin spent the last 8 years of his life learning this terrible, unforgiving truth. Night after night, alone in that dark room, talking to a ghost who couldn't answer back, waiting patiently to join him. This is Dean Martin, the untold legacy. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Share this with anyone who has loved deeply and lost painfully. And subscribe because in our next video, we reveal the truth about Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra's secret feud and why they went years without speaking. Until then, keep swinging, Polly.